Hello and welcome to another episode of Other Record Labels, where we talk about the art and culture of running an indie record label or being a DIY artist. And really, they're the same thing. I mean, on one hand, you release other people's records. On the other hand, you release your own records. It doesn't really matter. I'm your host, Scott Orr. Thanks so much for listening in. Today is a really exciting episode. I talked with Kay from Specialist Subject Records. They're based out of the UK. They've been around for, I think, 15 years or more. It was probably one of the most enjoyable interviews and enlightening interviews that I've got to do this year. It was really exciting. We talk a lot about some really unique marketing strategies, and I've talked to our listeners and our labels individually before, and the difficulty of releasing records and the marketing behind releasing records has been a sore spot for a lot of these labels. It's something that we all collectively want to get better at doing. And I think Kay has some really great insights and some really exciting stuff in this episode that I think you're going to really like. I'm going to kind of break down some of those things next week on another episode. And it's similar to that guide that I put together, basically kind of breaking down a lot of the wisdom that our interviewees have shared with us over the past couple of years. I know listening to these episodes, it's hard to remember what is said. That's why I do the follow-up episode a week later. And that's why we put together this little free guide, which you can get at otherrecordlabels.com, which has a lot of this wisdom all condensed into one little file. I think you're going to love this episode. There was some really interesting and exciting tips that Kay shares with us. Plus, they're just an awesome little label. How are you doing?
Yeah, fine, thank you. Busy day and busy week, but it's kind of nice it was nice knowing that I had this coming up, because I could rush through everything this morning and then think, right, I've definitely got an hour where I can just take myself out of the situation, which is really nice.
Are things busy? Is October, November a busy time normally, or is it just a special time?
Well, a few months ago, we were sorting out our final releases, and we had 2 releases out on the last 2 weeks of October, and then we had this release that was out the 1st of November, and that was all we had planned. And we were like, oh, brilliant. Pretty much November will finish. We can concentrate on selling Christmas stuff in the shop, relaunching our this season ticket subscription that we do, and then we close over Christmas anyway. So we were like, oh, we can just sort of sail through the rest of the year. And then on yesterday we confirmed our 7th release for next year.
Wow.
Yeah, we suddenly went from having nothing, which was kind of nice, but always a little bit scary when you don't have anything on the horizon, to 7 things. And we were walking into work this morning, and I got here and I was just saying to Erica, in a cartoon where someone's got something going around their head, and it's one character saying one thing, one character saying another thing, and I felt all the way into work I was like, oh, how are Fresh doing at Fest at the moment? How's this release announcement? How's the release announcement going to go today? How are we doing selling season tickets? How are we going to get all these pre-orders out on time? And it was just a huge mixture, which it's nice to be busy, but we're not usually this busy. So that's a bit of a surprise for us all, I think.
Right. Well, that is a good thing. When you're talking about 7 releases for next year, and just to kind of give a little perspective to our listeners, because I don't know when this will air, but we're talking now at October, end of October in 2019. So when you're talking about releases for 2020, are you talking about 7 releases that are, as of right now, staggered throughout the year, or will they all come out in the first and second quarter?
We've pretty much got, I think, if, when someone wants to pencil something in, they're always like, yeah, I'll be ready by April, and then it'll end up being September.
Oh, I see.
I think we've got 1 a month for the first. We've definitely got 1 in January, possibly 2 in February, 1 in March, 1 in April, 1 in May, and then 1 I think will be September.
Okay.
1 in July. So we're going to try and aim to do one a month. Our plan was always this year, because this year's been kind of one on top of another, and they've all kind of been bunched up together. We were like, next year we'll definitely leave a gap of at least 3 weeks before each release, so we've got time to sort of go into it. And then already we've got 2 coming out in February, so it's like we have the best intentions.
Do you have in your mind, is there an ideal time to release a record in the year?
Well, there's the classic, like, I think spring and autumn are like the two kind of classic times people do that. September, October's usually good because if you are into the whole end of year lists and things like that, then you can like get onto that. But also there's that, like, I think New Year excitement, people get excited about new music, what's going to kind of set the tone for the year. Right. So I think earlier in the year can be really fun as well. We've had like weird successes with doing something like really close to Christmas or really close to the New Year where no one else is really putting anything out. So you can get like, it's almost like it opens up spaces on the biggest Spotify playlists and stuff like that. So because people haven't got anything else to write about, so if you catch people at the right time, you can kind of...
Interesting. Yeah. Oh, that's a great little trick. I never thought of that. I've always avoided December so much just because I don't, if you really have a great record or a great single, you want to give it its own life and not have it... be interfered with Christmas music and everything. But but that is, I guess, man, this is like huge right now. We can end this call because this is, but like New Music Friday, the playlist on Spotify, that comes out every Friday. So they've got to have something to release.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I'm not saying it's something that we have tactfully gone in to do, but it's definitely been something that has been like a good... we've got something good out of it because of doing something like that. So yeah.
Oh, well, that's great. I'm going to try it. I'm going to record some throwaway song and then release it on New Year's Eve or something.
Yeah, just somewhere in between Christmas and New Year where no one is doing anything. Yeah.
I remember one of the bigger sort of releases was about like 2 years ago. Francis and the Lights released an album, a surprise album, and it was like on December 29th. So it was like maybe it was right in between Christmas and New Year's. And I thought, man, that's kind of smart because there's a really captive audience. Like everyone's just kind of bored at their parents' house, from those 5 days. Yeah. So I was like, wow, that's kind of a good idea.
Yeah, I think if the band doesn't subscribe to that whole, like, okay, I need to do something tactful in terms of how the music industry works, then you can play around with it and you can make up the rules. Like saying that this is coming out in January, like we might have something in the pipeline for Christmas Day at the moment that we're working on. We a couple of years ago when we did, we like helped release Jeff Rosenstock's last record we did like UK and Europe, and that went up online on New Year's Day, and then the record came like a couple of months later, and it's so nice having that reaction on New Year's Day, everyone like waking up hungover and discovering this thing. It's like it was really exciting.
Totally. I'm thinking now I'm going to look at the calendar and I'm going to release this episode in December just to give people that idea.
Okay.
Just because I would hate for people to listen to this in January and think, I got to wait 12 months to try that. So that is really cool. That is really cool. I like that a lot. I like thinking about the year and for releases. And I'm probably, I often make too many decisions based on my own habits, but I certainly try to avoid parts of the summer and too close to Christmas. But it is interesting that to keep an open mind and to consider when might not be an overly crowded season.
Yeah.
What's it like running a label from the UK? And more specifically, I want to ask you about what role does the US play? And I'm not American, but I mean, a lot of our goals are American based. Are you going after US press as much as an American label would? Is there a British equivalent of Pitchfork, or is it all the same?
It's something that we've definitely shown more and more interest over, like, especially the last 12 months, but even like the last few years, as we've kind of become more and more legit, more and more thinking about like how we can support bands best, what we can do. And I think it is really easy to look over at publications and labels and bands over in the US. And, you know, most of the time you're just going off what you can see on Twitter, because it's, you know, you're seeing this constant feed, and it's really easy to look at that and be like, oh, they've got like such a community going on, like they're all like their bands are all touring with each other and bigging each other up. The publications are only covering like these labels. These labels are like hanging out or doing showcases or things with these labels or these publications. And I think like it's taken us a long time to not just like be looking at these publications and these labels like really starry-eyed and actually think like, and it can feel like kind of lonely us being in the UK. I think we're quite different to a lot of the other labels in the UK, purely because of our kind of journey as a label has been quite accidental and has kind of grown bigger than it ever was. So you have like, there's still loads of small bedroom labels that are doing really awesome things. There's bigger, more legit labels that have kind of got that like old music industry money backing them and keeping them going now. And then we're kind of, you know, we started the label in the recession. We've never had money. We've never had like a huge successful release, yet we've managed to kind of keep going. And yeah, it's funny, like, yeah, I think in terms of press, we still pitch to American websites, because as much as like we're reading them ourselves, and I know that other like music readers are like looking to the US for recommendations, because, you know, maybe everyone's starry-eyed towards that. And so if our bands are getting featured in those, like maybe it holds more clout than if they got in a UK publication. So yeah, there is a bit of the kind of looking towards that as that model, but I think we're starting to realize that we've got like a good thing going on, and, you know, we're doing our thing, and it doesn't matter that we're not one of them.
I agree. Is there a benefit to being a UK label in your mind? Do you find it works as an advantage anytime?
I think in the UK it does, definitely. I think like it's kind of hard, because I guess like some of our releases we do as co-releases with, it's an American artist, an American label will put it out, and then we'll do the UK or UK and Europe side. And sometimes that can feel a little bit like an American label is maybe giving up their, you know, digital rights and pressing rights for that area, but they see us as so small. It's almost like they're saving money on doing the legwork, like doing the PR, doing the stuff like that. It's like, instead of them having to have a UK arm or to completely ignore it, then, you know, they just get a little label on board to do this. And
interesting.
That can be good. It can be really nice. Like our co-release records have always come out of like genuine friendship or relationships with the bands or the labels. So it's, you know, it's not like it's not like being used. It's just, you can kind of see that that's, you know, how it's working to everyone's benefit.
I totally agree.
Yeah, and it's rare that it's the other way around. It's rare that we put out a UK label, a UK band, and can secure an American label to co-release with. It's like we would never pitch it unless we knew that the band was serious about going over there. But I can understand that an American label to take the risk on a UK band is like huge. Why would they invest in that? So yeah, I think we do a good job for our UK bands.
Right. You're talking about some polyvinyl releases. I saw some of those in your catalog.
So
is that an example?
Yeah, like we've done one split release with polyvinyl. We've worked with Top Shelf before. We're doing a record with K9 Records at the moment. We've done Buzz Records in Canada. We've done Double Whammy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's been great. Like for us as well, like part of the co-release process is we get to see how these other labels are working, and that can be really exciting because you get to kind of have this like inside view.
Right. And so I do think, I mean, when you were discussing this at the beginning, I started to realize how much of a benefit that might be is it's giving the record or the rights to the record to somebody who is more familiar with the territory and can probably do a better job than you. Now, you don't have to give me the specifics of the arrangement, but is it, are they sending you the audio and you're pressing your own copies over there? Is that to avoid freight and everything?
We've done it a few different ways.
Okay.
So we've always kind of looked at every release as like completely independent.
Right.
And where we've tried to set up processes in the past, it's all for everything, like across the whole way that we run the business. Every time we're like, okay, this is what we're going to do from now on. After one record, we'll be like, oh, that didn't work. Let's come up with something else. So we've done ones where we'll buy a bit of the pressing that is pressed in America, and then they'll ship it over to us. A lot of the time we are both pressing in like the Czech Republic, so that could either be like separate pressings or the same pressing, but we'll get it shipped straight from the plant, so many to America, so many to us. And I think it depends if we're taking lead on it and we're organizing the pressing, or if the American label or the other label is taking lead on it, and then deciding how many you want. Like if we're only taking 150 copies, it makes sense for us to do a pressing together. If we're getting 500 copies, then like with exchange rates and freight and things like that, then we'll probably do our own pressing. So yeah,
okay,
it's always something that's like discussed, and we'll always try and work out what works best.
I've heard that Europe and UK are finding manufacturing of physical products to be increasingly costly. Is that true?
I mean, every time we get a quote from our broker, it is more expensive every single time. It just creeps up more and more slowly. Yeah, it sucks.
Why is that? I mean, the popularity is increasing. You think that it would go down? Maybe. I guess not.
Well, I mean, we're kind of politically we're screwed at the moment with like Brexit and it's. There's just this like uncertainty that will be like 3 years of uncertainty, and we're getting things shipped from they're made in the EU. Like eventually, if Brexit goes through, we're not going to be part of the EU, so there's going to be extra like customs charges and things like that. It is a weird time. There's a couple of pressing plants in the UK. They tend to be like expensive, exclusive, like cool things. There's a couple that we are kind of just like basic pressing plants that is something that for the right project we'd love to like explore that and see how it works. But yeah, as far as our broker that we get our pressings through is concerned, whenever they've emailed about Brexit, as like lots of companies are doing, it's an unknown, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Interesting. I want to talk a little bit about, we're going to get into the depths of the label, but I want to talk before that. I want to ask, going back to this idea of the UK and American, what advice would you give American labels who want to do a better job at reaching UK listeners?
I think make sure that the band coming over and touring the UK is definitely part of the plan.
Okay.
Especially it's been interesting over like the last year where we've taken like PR more seriously, and we've taken a more hands-on approach with doing that. It's looking at like what people are likely to feature, what people are likely to be excited about. And if you've got a band that is putting out a record and they're never going to come to the UK, there's no tour dates, there's like nothing, then there's nothing to like get people in. There's like, why would you be excited about a band that you might never get to see live? And it's interesting because we were discussing it the other day, and it was almost like the reason that people are into like live music and DIY punk and counterculture is because it's accessible, because you can know these people, and you can have people are into smaller bands or bands at the level that we're on, because there's like an accessibility to them.
Interesting.
And if you're never gonna see that band live, like, why would you put your energy into that? You may as well put it into like, major label stars that you might not get to see live either. So
yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I definitely think it's, have the tour dates ready for when the record's announced, so it's all part of the plan and the package, because people will buy into that and be excited about it.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. That's a good point. Now, but I mean, a lot of the labels that listen to this show wouldn't have the resources or the ability to send a band, or the band themselves wouldn't be able to go overseas. Some of them are having a hard enough time just leaving their American town.
Yeah. Sure. I can totally understand that. And I guess it's like saying, well, if it's not going to happen, like, should they have a UK label on board? Is there any need for it? Do they need to like break that market? It's interesting. Like, when I was listening to the podcast that you did with 6131, and I can't remember the name of the guy, but he was saying he was saying like, it's part of the band's choice to decide like if they want to work with a label or not. It's like you're basically asking somebody to lend you this money, which could be like thousands of pounds to put into a release, and then this label will also help you pay that loan back. But like, some people don't want to take that on, and it's like, well, do you want to take that on in another country that you're never going to go to? So
that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. No, that is a good point too. Yeah, I can see that, and I think I think the what makes the UK tempting, and I think it makes the whole world tempting, but then we're left with this touring problem. But because of this globalization, because of streaming and the internet, we have fans from all over the world. Obviously, we have more fans in Canada and America, but we have fans from all over the world, and it's hard to. I get emails all the time. People saying, "Are you guys, or is this band or whatnot touring in UK?" And I'm just like, not a chance. Like this, it's impossible. But so I can see it being tempting, and man, I wish it was as easy to tour there as it is to send an MP3 somewhere.
And I guess there's things like where you're talking about like physical records, and wanting to do a better job in reaching UK and European markets. It's like, one thing that can sometimes be overlooked is like distribution, and having like a really good distributor, and making sure that you as an American label or a Canadian label are getting the records to the distributor to make sure that they're getting to these places. And I'm saying that from experience. Like, I'm from both sides. Years ago, we used to have an American distributor, and we were so crap at sending stuff over to them. We were always really late, or maybe we didn't like keep enough copies back for it. So by the time we sent it, like, we could have sent it over, we've like sold out of them. By the time it went to the distributor and then to the shops, it was like too expensive. And it was like, oh, maybe it's just easy to just do stuff direct. And we're quite lucky. Like, one thing that the UK does have on its side is that postage prices are really cheap. Like, we can offer worldwide postage for cheaper than in America or in Canada prices. So it does work like the kind of direct to label. We're quite lucky that we can offer worldwide. But then we see it from the shop side, and we try and get in records. And because we kind of, I guess because of the world that we're in and what our shop focuses on, a lot of it comes out of like the DIY punk scene or is smaller releases. And sometimes it's really hard if like, okay, an American label has got a worldwide distributor, or they've got a distributor in the UK, but they're not sending the records to them on time. So then we're really late getting them in, or we have to chase them, or there's not enough. And so a lot of the time now it's working where we're going straight to a label and saying, can we buy direct off you for our shop?
Interesting. Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah, I've seen that a little bit, and I would be in the same position as you. Is just being so procrastinating to get to records somewhere. And I wish I could do more of it, because I know that the fans, I know there's this moment where a fan would go to our Bandcamp and then see that shipping to UK might be 20 odd bucks.
Yeah.
And I imagine they would enjoy it far more if they could go to your shop or go to a local store and pick it up.
Yeah, it's been really nice starting to do that with the shop as well. Like, instead of having the commitment of, okay, well, we have to invest in getting at least 150 records, or maybe a whole pressing of 300 or 500 or more. We can be like, let's take a box of 20 and see how they go. Oh, they've all sold. Can you send us another box of 20?
Yeah.
And so we don't have the investment of the time and the effort of putting out a release, but we get to like support these bands that we really like and kind of make them affordable within the UK. So that's been something that we've kind of been doing over the last couple of years since having the shop. I think that's been good. That's
amazing. And I wanted to ask a little bit about the store later on, but that is a cool thing, because if a store were to send me an email and say, I want to order 20 vinyls, I would drop everything and send that, but it is so it's a great order for a small label. It's a great order for an indie artist or an indie band. And it's not a huge investment for you guys compared to, like you said, 2,000 or 1,000 records.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. Let's talk about the label. Can you give me a bit of a history of the label and your origin story as well?
Okay. I mean, it's quite intertwined. It's quite complicated.
Okay.
So me and Andrew run the label. Me and Andrew have also been together for 11 years now.
Wow.
And he was also in a band called Bangers, which was from when we got together up until 2016 they stopped.
Okay.
And so a couple of years before me and Andrew got together and Bangers started, Andrew was at university. He was doing music tech, and part of one of the projects that he had for like one semester was all the students had to essentially like put out a fictional record.
Okay.
And so it was like early mid 2000s, and someone would do like a release on like a USB stick, or someone would do something that was just completely fictional. They'd just write about it, like hypothetically, this is what they would do. And Andrew and his friend Tom were in like an acoustic folk punk band, like an acoustic folk punk duo, and they just put out a 7-inch, as you do.
Oh, no.
And they went and toured it. And weirdly, I was at a house show that they played before I met Andrew. But I met the other two guys in Bangers. So yeah, it kind of starts with that. It was the release was real, but where it came to like their coursework and their writing about like hypothetically how they would release it, they made up this record label name, which was Specialist Subject Records, and that was it. They just kind of handed their work in.
That is amazing. What a great story. We've never had that story before. That is a completely original origin story.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I'm like, it's that classic, like, I just think of someone in their, like, someone who's 20 who's just like, well, why don't we just actually put out a 7-inch? And this is like the early 2000s where, like, no one pressed records. There wasn't really anyone doing it. And they just go and get 7-inches pressed.
That'd be pretty expensive.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I mean, they had student loans, so maybe they didn't really think about that.
You know what? I did that too. I did my first CD on using a government student loan.
Yeah, and it's really DIY. It's in like 7-inch mailers, and they did that thing where you use like cellulose thinners over photocopies, so it like leaves like a black print.
Oh, okay.
On the front, so that all the sleeves were made out like that, and I like had one. Had a couple years ago, and yeah. So
how many copies did they do?
Oh, I don't know. It would be over 100. Like years later, they were like cropping up. Like I remember staying at Tom's flat when the guy that he like did this release with, and he found loads in the bottom of his wardrobe. And this was like after the label had started going, and he just like gave them to us.
Oh,
and we used to give them away with loads of record, like anything that anyone ordered, we'd give them one of these 7-inches. So
I'm gonna look on eBay for one. I would love to own one of those. What a great story.
Cool. Nice. So then after that, a few years later, this is when like me and Andrew were together. Bangers have started their band, and it was they were playing Fest, and a few other labels were playing Fest in Florida as well, and they wanted to do like I think it was like a 3 or 4 way split, and just to have like, I think Andrew kind of got lumbered with like sorting it out because he'd put out a 7-inch before and no one else had. And this 7-inch came together, and I think it was just for ease. It was like, well, let's just put it under like a record label name. So it's like easier than it being like this split release. And so the name just got resurrected, and yeah, it just kind of went from that. That came out, then Caves put out their first 7-inch, and Andrew like offered to put that out. And then, so really, like alongside this, I didn't really have anything to do with it. I'd be like assembling 7-inches or like cutting out download codes and things like that. But separately, I was like running a screen printer.
Okay.
So I was like printing t-shirts for all the bands, and that was like my part of it. So I kind of had like the monopoly on the whole like UK DIY punk scene, which was great because just like churning out. It like started up in my parents' garage, and then I like moved to the studio and started like a business. And that was kind of how it went for like a few years. We were running it alongside each other. And then, yeah, after like, I think one of my first releases, it was like in the catalog numbers were like in the 30s. And that's when it was kind of, I'd stopped screen printing, and it got to the point where Andrew was like, we'd like run it out of like corners of like flats or like under the stairs or in spare bedrooms, and it just got too much. And Andrew was like, I either need to like walk away from it or I need to do something like bigger. Yeah. And I think because I was like a fan and a fan of all the bands that he was putting out with, and it really was like our life. We like bands were staying at our flat all the time, and it was just like the kind of core thing of everything that we did. I was like, I'm not really ready to see it finish.
Right.
So I kind of, I like went part-time at my job and then left my job, and we got an office together, and that was kind of the start of it being like, okay, let's actually try and do this. So yeah, that was.
So the label started officially, like, when was the first Bangers 7-inch?
10 years ago. It was 10 years ago this week, I think. So yeah, last week of October, because it was 10 years, the 10-year anniversary since playing that fest. Amazing. Yeah, 10 years ago.
That's great.
Yeah, weird.
That is really cool. And then, so when did you quit your job and open up the office?
So that was maybe 2004. Yeah, summer 2014.
Okay.
And then we had an office for a few years in Exeter, and then the rent on the office got put up. We couldn't justify doing it. Yeah. We kind of changed things around, and then the idea to move to Bristol and open a shop came up, and that was just over 2 years ago that we moved to Bristol, and it's been our full-time endeavor since then.
That's awesome. And how many people are working with you? You mentioned Erica.
Yeah. So we got Erica, who has been with us 6 months, and she's basically our publicist. It's like a very American word. I don't really know what publicist is, but I'm learning that it's publicist.
That is true. It is an American word. It's an entourage word.
Yeah. So she's our publicist or PR person, hype woman.
Sure.
And then Rory, he's with us he basically runs the shop side, but it's so he orders in all the stuff for our distro. He does all of our used records that we have, but then at the same time, he still does helps us with our mail order. He still is very much involved with the label as well. So there's kind of 4 of us.
Okay, that's cool. So, I mean, what a great story. And 7 inches, is that something have you guys moved on from 7 inches? I mean, that was a popular thing in the punk scene, wasn't it?
Yeah, like I hate them.
Yeah,
I
me
would quite
too.
happy
Me
never
too.
do a 7 inch
They don't
again.
fit in my rack at all. Like they just,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm like, as soon as you put it on, you have to stand up and change it.
Yeah, I know.
But Rory and Andrew still really love 7 inches. I think like both of them are like, well, Rory's like definitely really into his records and has been for a long time. And he's like nearly 10 years younger than us. And it's really exciting,
Oh,
like
great.
seeing how music is part of his life. And, you know, me and Andrew have known him since he was 15 and playing uh, like gigs in Exeter. So it's cool. Like, yeah, he's really into like the 7 inches, like a kind of scrappy punk band piece of merchandise that you pick up at a gig. Yeah, I just think the amount that they cost, you can make a one-sided 12-inch EP and have like, they cost about the same, but
Oh, interesting. As a one, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
yeah, so we tend to do that now, like do them as 12-inch EPs and make the packaging really nice and
Wait, wait,
make
wait,
it
wait,
more
wait.
of a thing.
Sorry. Have you done one-sided 12 inches?
Yeah, we've done quite a few, yeah.
And so you don't have to pay for like the stamper or the plates for the other side. So it's how much cheaper is that?
I don't know. I know that it's definitely better than doing like a 10-inch because
Okay.
10 inches, they press it as a 12-inch and cut off the edges, which seems
Okay.
wild.
So it's not really saving you. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, yeah, so I guess you're saving on the plates. I don't know. I know that it's comparable to a 7-inch.
You know what?
So
That is so cool. We're going to a pressing plant in a couple of weeks to do an episode, and I'm going to ask about that because that is a really cool thing. You can do some cool art, like you could paint on the other side or something.
Yeah, we've done screen printed ones. We've done an etched one years ago. Yeah.
That is really cool. Because I mean, you can get up to like 16 or 17 minutes on one side.
Yeah. So for like an EP of shortish songs, like it works really well. It's really nice.
You are full of great ideas. I'm gonna. I got to go back.
That's what happens when you talk to the UK. That's how they're doing it on their own.
I know. It's the crown. It's the queen. That's what makes us Canadians and UK so smart.
Sure.
Sure. So okay. So and so your origins, like you said, you just kind of came in with the label and kind of watched it start up. That's kind of a special thing. What is the story behind the name? I know it was a fake name, but where did the idea come from?
So Andrew's two-piece acoustic folk punk thing was called Magnus Magnusson, which is the name of the presenter of the British show Mastermind.
Okay.
And in Mastermind, it's basically a quiz show where you go on with like a specialist subject. So your specialist subject might be Harry Potter, or it might be like World War I history, or it might be something like super, super niche. And so because their thing was called Magnus Magnusson Specialist Subject Records was how that got named.
Oh, I see. That's awesome. And it does make sense too for sticking with the genre.
Well, I can't imagine it being anything different. And it's little things like the logo. We've had that logo since the second release, since this like split for Fest. And it was because this guy, Joe, who was in this band called Calvin Ball, he's like an amazing illustrator and he did the artwork for that 7-inch. And when he was doing the artwork, Andrew was like, oh, can you just like do a logo for it? This is what I want it to look like. And he just explained the like 2 lines with the words in the middle. And Joe just did that, stuck it on the back. And Andrew was like, oh, great. And then that has just been the logo ever since. And I think I had to rework it once, like maybe 5 years ago. I had to, because we had it as such a like small, low resolution JPEG. So to get it big, to screen print it or to have it on like posters and stuff, it was just really annoying.
Okay.
So I ended up like tracing over the thing, but it's so simple and I really love it. I
awesome.
think it's really nice that it's got that history. And Andrew's definitely gone through stages where he's like, oh, it's really boring and we've had it forever and there wasn't any thought that went into it in the first place. Why have we still got it? But yeah, I'm really keen on the logo.
That's really cool. Okay, I want to ask you about the season ticket, because I'm on your website right now and looking at this cool little tote and a coffee cup and some tattoos. So can you tell me about what is the 2020 season ticket?
So it will be every release that we put out next year on vinyl. We limit it to 100. We've never sold 100 yet, but I'm thinking this is going to be the year.
This is
and basically, we have, like last year, we had 75 people sign up for it. The first year we did it, we had 32. So it's like, it's gone up every year. And it's such a like massive boost for us, because it's like, okay, 75 people are relying on us to put out good stuff and to deliver it well. And you know, although we put out what we love, it's definitely guided by these 75 people. It's like we can't put out like something that's completely far off what we do, because that will just alienate these people. So they're kind of like our cheerleaders, really. They're like the people that are enabling us to do it. And so they sign up, they pay a one-off thing of £100 and then postage. And we send every record before it comes out. So today we've got a release out on Friday. We've been packing all the pre-orders today, so it'll arrive with them on Thursday. We sent them the download yesterday, and we do that for every release that we do throughout the year. So
amazing.
Yeah, it's fun.
And then are there bonuses that they get for joining?
Yeah, so they get those initial gifts. So this year we're doing that tote bag and coffee cup and tattoo sheet. In the past, what have we done? We've done we've done all sorts of things. Like just last year we did like a cool bag lunchbox.
Yeah.
We've done plectrums. We've done T-shirts, a zine, patches, enamel badges. Just kind of whatever comes into our head. We're like, that'll be really nice. That's a fun piece of merch. Like, let's do that for the season ticket. So
that's a great name for the program, by the way. But so they're getting. Like this seems crazy. So they're potentially getting 7 records, right?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's going to be like this, like 2019. It's 9 records, all of them EPs or LPs. So like 12 inches. Before that, I mean, we're kind of the way that we've done it and the way that we've priced it. We could. If something came, we kind of aim at 8. Right. If something came along that we couldn't turn down, or a couple of things come that we couldn't turn down, we would do them, because it means more for us to do them than, we have to cut off at 8 because of the money involved in this. So I see.
But that's still, I mean, 7 or 8 records, and they're getting, and then a tote bag and a coffee cup and all this cool stuff. Like that's crazy for £100. That's crazy. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. It essentially works out over the year that you're getting it at like wholesale price, and you also get the like 10% off our website and in our shop for a year as well. And
right. No, I think it's really cool. And what I love in talking about the you were saying the 75 people, you're making records at least for them. And I think when we were talking with Kevin at Top Shelf, he was saying the same thing about their Bandcamp subscription. And I think what's so cool is when you sign a band, and in 2020, when you have 100 season ticket holders,
hopefully
you can sign a band and say, I can guarantee that you'll sell 100 records.
Yeah.
Which is it's an incredible thing.
It's definitely like the difference between like, well, how many are we going to press? Or maybe there's a band where we're a bit like, oh, really, like to press 300 records that's a huge risk. But it's like, well, 75, 100 are called for. So, you know, it's only 200 that we've got to try. So,
goodness.
It's nice. It's good. Like, we're super proud of it. And the season ticket was like Andrew's idea. He wanted something that was like super British again, like just without
That's
it
cool.
being like a mail order subscription or something like
Yeah.
that. I feel like we've really made it our own thing, and 6 years of doing it as well, which is crazy.
That's awesome. And do you close? They basically have to by January 1st sign up, or when does it kind of close?
It'll probably go to the end of January.
Okay,
like depending on if we sell it. Like,
yeah.
I know with our first release, so we've just announced the album from AJJ, which is out the 17th of January, and the most limited pressing of that we've kept aside 100 for. So like,
wow,
that. But then because we don't have anything till February, then it should be okay. Yeah,
that's a really, really cool thing. Let's talk about PR. Like we've touched on it a little bit, and I know a lot of the labels I talk to are forced to handle going after press on their own, primarily for financial reasons. What is your strategy and opinion on finding press to cover your records?
So in the kind of like early, I don't know, 7 years, Andrew was kind of muddling through it himself, or like I was helping him do it. And it was like, the thing is with PR, like, it's a very different landscape. Like, 10 years ago, putting out a record, like maybe you wanted to get some reviews on stuff. You wanted to get a review on Maximum Rock and Roll or Razor Cake, or where kind of like websites, it was like Punk News, or in the UK, we've had like Punktastic for a long time. And it wasn't really like journalism, features, interviews. It were, and definitely not premieres at all. That was just like not a thing. So we could kind of keep up with it. We could send it to like who we wanted to send it to, but like we were like across the board, like selling stuff was easier. Bands were, especially UK bands, were touring a lot, so it was kind of, they were making their own PR. Like, still to this day, our most successful record has never had any PR. We purposely didn't even send an email out about it to anybody. It was just like, here it is. They toured, and it's been great. And it's still found all the time on Bandcamp. It's still selling. It's still like, when we look at our digital results, it'll be like the big ones like Jeff Rosenstock and Fresh, and then it's like this Shit Present record that is years old now. They haven't toured or played shows for years, and it's still right up there. So super interesting that that can happen. We've worked with external PRs, and we've hired it for releases, like where we have taken bigger releases that, we need to concentrate, because we do all our mail order in-house, because we're as hands-on as we can be, but it was like, we don't want to let it down because we're not doing the PR side. And it's also like choosing to do that so we're investing in it for ourselves as well. We're seeing how external PRs work to see, if it's worthwhile for releases, what releases it is worthwhile for. And it's still something that we employ now, and we will get for certain releases. But really, like, Erica is now doing our PR in-house, and it was always like a dream that we could do our PR in-house, because we want it to be creative, we want it to be hands-on, we want it to be like one of the things we do is we have these gold badges that are like our version of a Blue Peter badge, which, when Blue Peter is like a kids program, and like growing up in the 90s, it was like, I don't know what I can explain it to, but it was like, there were presenters, and it was for kids, but they'd have like, the presenters would go and do a challenge, or they'd have a celebrity on, or they'd have a band playing, or they would show you how to make their biggest thing in like the 70s, that they made like a Tracy Island from Thunderbirds out of like washing up liquid bottles and things like that. And it's just like this very wholesome TV program. And when they had celebrities on it, they would give them a Blue Peter badge. And so we've created our own Blue Peter badge. So when we're working people who are like super supportive, they go out of their way for us. They, maybe they've instigated an interview for a band, or like we've even given it to customers who have like supported us throughout the years and been really good. And we'll send them like our gold badge as like a thank you. And it's just being like grateful.
That's really impactful. That's awesome. So you send that to like if somebody like covers you or interviews a band or
it's like if someone's like if it's like someone has copied and pasted a press release or they've like done a review, but they've not really kind of gone above and beyond.
I know what you mean.
But I think it's just a way of showing that we're grateful to anyone that's like helping us, because it's hard and people don't have to, and it's thankless, and it's just trying to show that we are grateful of those people out there. So,
that's so nice. You have a store, like from what I read online, the label offices are upstairs, and you have a traditional record store downstairs. Is that right?
No.
Okay, sorry, that was Wikipedia.
Yeah, no. So we're inside a music venue. So there's a music venue. It's over 3 floors. As I'm talking to you now, I'm actually in the basement.
Okay.
So in the basement, there's a 60-cap venue, and then next door there's a recording studio. Wow. And I was like, can I just creep into the recording studio to do this thing? Because it'll be like the quietest room in the building, because it is really buzzing here. There's always loads of people here and loads going on. And I was like, I just need to go somewhere quiet. So that's what you got in the basement. The ground floor as you walk in, where the bar is and like tables and chairs during the day, that's like a vegan cafe and coffee shop. And then in the evening, it's like the bar. Behind that, there's like a 230-cap music venue.
Wow.
And then you go up the stairs where the toilets are, and you get to the top of the stairs, you turn left to go to the toilets, you turn right, and you're in our shop. And then our shop is essentially 2 rooms. And the back room is like where our office is, and we run all our mail order from, and that's where we are every day. And
cool.
And the shop's the first room. So it's kind of they're next to each other.
Okay, so maybe that was just my mind imagining it like a movie or something. But so is the shop open like regular hours, like most days?
Yeah, every day. 12 till 6, and then sometimes if there's like quite often maybe once a week or twice a week, we'll stay open late for gigs that happen.
Oh, nice. Okay,
so with the venue, like it's a great size venue for kind of bands that we work with and our friends work with, or just like, let me think who we've had recently. So a couple of weeks ago, there was Frankie Cosmos playing in the main venue.
Nice.
And then in the basement venue, there was this band called Chew. Who else? We've had, it's where like Jeff Rosenstock will play, or Martha, or
right.
It's like, so the Flatliners are playing in April.
And so you have the store open whenever a show's on.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
We'll keep the store open. We'll drink some beers. People can. It's quite nice as well, because it's quite a good place to escape to when it's like a sold out gig and there's up to 300 people in the building. You can come and hide out in the shop and drink beers and chat. So that's quite nice.
and you obviously sell other people's records, not just your own labels, right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
So we've got like a few thousand records now. So that's kind of new and used, all kind of under like punk, indie rock, metal, hardcore, that kind of stuff.
Does that offer a label any advantages? Like not any label can just open a brick and mortar store, but I'm wondering if having a physical store helps you learn more about your listeners or how people consume music?
I definitely think it's taught us how people consume music. It's like, it's super interesting. It's been really interesting how many people come in like super open-minded, and they're like, recommend me a record, I want to buy it.
Way.
And
that's cool.
Yeah, like all the time. And I'm like, how much money do you have that you can do this? But that's always so nice, because we can put some records on. We can like, we always have like Spotify playing like all day, every day. That's like the soundtrack to us being in the shop. Sure. And it's really funny as well. Like, we kind of have like these ongoing games where there's certain records that if you'll put on a record and you'll be like, someone will ask me what this is, and then you see if they like their ears perk up and they're like, what's this? And then you can tell them and they might buy the record. And it's super interesting. It's it's really fun.
That is a good way, and sometimes I've done that. Sometimes I've been too shy to ask what it is, but there's always the coolest music playing in a record shop.
Yeah, like, I mean, sometimes we can spend the entire day listening to Metallica, so it's not always cool. It depends how we're feeling.
Yeah. Well, that is really cool. I mean, it's something we don't hear too much, although I think 6131, an example you brought up, I think they have a record store as well, somewhere in wherever they are in the South. But I think it's really cool to recommend artists and to also even just have like your own display and your own records in the real environment.
And it's funny, like, one of the things when we called the shop after the label, it was like, are we going to do it as a separate entity completely? Are we going to do it as the same thing? Are we going to push special subjects? And there's people who have been coming into our shop for 2 years regularly, and they have no idea that we're a label at all. Because they come in for because they're just into different music, and it's made us like broaden and be more broad in like what we're listening to and excited about. And tonight we're gonna go watch Gouge Away playing with Refused and Thrice. It's like it's cool that I've been able to get into bands like Gouge Away, and that is like, obviously we're not going to work with them, but if a band like Gouge Away wanted to work with a label, we'd be like, oh, it's not really like what we work with, but we can still be really supportive of the band, be really excited about them, like play them in the shop and people ask who they are and stuff. So that's awesome.
And switching gears over to your online store, I mean, I saw a lot of magazines and zines, and is somebody passionate about print at the label?
Yeah, me.
That's awesome. By the way, I don't know if you sent one over, but I haven't received anything yet.
Oh, no, I did. I sent you one of our zines, and we did this little like stream zine as well, which hopefully you'll get in like a few days.
Well, I was hoping, like, we don't have mail on the weekends, so I was hoping I'd get it to see it before we chatted, but thank you so much for sending something.
That's all right. Yeah, no worries. That's cool. Yeah. Well, it's making the most of the cheap postage that we have. It's like to send out a zine is like a couple of pounds.
I actually thought I would get it quickly because I've shipped stuff, and oftentimes, and again, I don't know if it's because of the Queen, but I've shipped stuff to the UK and it's gotten there quicker than shipping to America.
Oh, weird. The Queen's just got her back. So
well, she's on the stamp. That's why, I think. Usually it's her face
They're like
on the
hurrying
stamp.
her through.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And I can just use one of them, and I can ship a whole record maybe for 50 cents or something. But no, not really.
Great.
So so you have, and you guys have done like an anniversary zine and stuff.
Yeah, we did that a couple of years ago for like the 10-year anniversary of this like university assignment that Andrew had. That was like 10 years. It got us to the end of the year, which was like 61 releases, and it was just as we opened the shop. So it felt like a new chapter, and it felt like a really good like time to be like, let's put something together that kind of looks at this before we are like in the shop, and that's like the new part of the label. So it definitely felt like there was like a line drawn down it at that point, I think.
Looking at your website, there's tons of paper products. Are they mostly yours, or are you distributing and selling other people's stuff?
We're distributing stuff.
Okay.
So it kind of started off like Andrew got Razor Cake in. He was always like a fan of that magazine. A few years ago, we started getting Maximum Rock and Roll before that stopped. And then She Shreds is like something that I was super into. So we like help them distribute in like Europe and stuff.
Okay.
Again, just like taking advantage of the like shipping prices. They'll ship over a box to me. I can sell them in the shop. And then I also like, ship on copies for them as well. So that's been super nice being able to like help out some, there's nothing in it for me except that we get to like have this magazine that I really like in the shop that like promotes guitar playing to women, and we get loads of like young musicians, like women, queer kids, like coming in who are like encouraging them to like play in bands and get into music and come to gigs. So it feels nice being able to offer that. And I think like the zines is part of that I never wanted the shop to be like super focused on just vinyl. So if people don't collect records or don't have the money to, there's like other stuff. And I really wanted to, I've always been really interested in zines. I think like small publishing and web publishing is like super interesting. And I've made a couple of zines over the years, and it was nice to see, it was nice to kind of delve into it and be like, oh, this is still like a huge thriving thing.
That's cool.
But like a lot of people who create zines, like maybe they sell them online or they take them to like a zine fair like a couple of times a year, but there isn't like bricks and mortar shops that are like stocking this. So it kind of made it like a purpose that I was like, right, that's something that I want to do. And yeah, we treat it in the same way as we treat like records, really. It's like I might go to a zine distro. We get a lot of stuff from Antiquated Future based in Olympia, and we'll like, they're a really great zine distro, and we'll like import stuff from them. Or there's like a couple of people creating zines in Germany and Belgium that we get them from. Maybe we go direct to like a zine distro, or we go direct to like the zine makers and be like, oh, can I buy like 3 copies or 5 copies? Or I've even done like trades with people before, which is really nice as well. Cool. So yeah,
have you done a zine like or like a printed piece that goes with a record?
The first Fresh album they did like a photo zine to go alongside it. Great Cynics we did like a flexi 7-inch for them, and they did like a tour diary zine to go along it. It's something that I really like. There's been a couple of records that are coming out next year where I've suggested they do like instead of an insert or a printed inner sleeve, we do like a lyric zine that has like gives you more information. It's got like the stories behind the songs, it's got like photos and stuff like that. So I'm still kind of like, I'm hoping that I'll get to help someone create one of those at some point.
And I see a guide to supporting musicians in the streaming age. This looks awesome. Yeah. This is a free download. And
it is, yeah, free download, or we give them away free with orders. We've taken them to stuff. We've always got a box on the counter in the shop that people can pick up. And
this is awesome.
That was what I've sent you, so you'll get one of those.
Oh, thank you. Oh, awesome. I can't wait to check that out. And I'll direct our listeners to where they can get that, because it looks like you can download a PDF for free or order it. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, there's a PDF for free. That came out of just an ongoing conversation that we've been having for years. And Andrew's I think Andrew's, when I've been listening to the podcast and hearing how you're talking about Spotify and like digital music, like he's very interested in a similar way. Like he's read like nerdy books on Spotify. So he's
well, you'll have to tell me what those are. I would love to read those.
Yeah. And I think it's like just this ongoing conversation of like, people don't have money. People want to help bands. Like people, like the general public, like it's hard to know what to do if you don't have the money to buy physical records. And just the conversation about like just being more thoughtful or being more purposeful with what you're doing. And you can use Spotify and streaming platforms in a way that is more thoughtful, that does benefit the musicians. So yeah, he wrote up this thing, and I formatted it for like the back of a newsletter that we do quarterly. And then when it came to the end of the quarter, it was like, oh, I don't want to lose all this information. So we kind of reformatted it into this like little mini zine. And then our friend Sammy, who was doing PR for us at the time, she just posted it on her Twitter, and it just like took off. And it's had like, it's the most successful like viral thing we've ever had, and it's for like a free zine.
You know what? I actually feel like when I was looking at it just now, I actually had thought that I've seen it before. Like this wasn't the first time I've seen it.
Yeah.
And most likely it just had come across on Twitter at that time.
Yeah. It's so weird. It's been translated into like French and Indonesian. It's amazing. Like there's been labels like, I know Community Records, when who we co-released the Slingshot Dakota album with, like they printed up like 500 to go out with records, and yeah, people have been reprinting it, putting it in zine distros, giving it out at shows, like recording studios or rehearsal studios have them on the desk. It's gone far and wide. It's pretty weird.
That's awesome. Wow, this has been so great, and there's been so much like cool little tidbits that I'm going to have to go back over and make sure I write down, because there's some really cool things, and there's some things that are going to stick with me no matter what. But thank you so much for doing this, Kay. This has been a lot of fun to chat with you, and you have such a cool label.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me on. It's exciting.
And you have a very cool, just a great way of going about things, and the way that you're gracious to your fans and to the community. I think it's just a really cool thing.
Yeah, I think it's like, at the end of the day, we've chosen to do this. It's very thankless. It's very, it's changing your entire lifestyle to like basically not earn money or like, do stuff for other people. Yeah. And, me and Andrew know that we're super lucky to get to do this, and super lucky to work with our friends and have this shop and be in this venue. And every day is like, it's very cool.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again. It's been awesome to chat with you. Thank you all for listening. What a great chat with Kay. They seem like such a cool label, and I love her way of doing things, and her mentality and her spirit is just so cool. I hope you really enjoyed that interview. There's lots more to come. I tell you, I mean, if you're listening to this in real time, we're coming to the end of 2019. Thanks so much for following along. And there are episodes booked well into the spring of next year. Not booked, recorded, they're done. And there's some really cool stuff. So thank you so much for following along. Visit otherrecordlabels.com for more information. You can get our free guide there if you're a first-time listener. Go to otherrecordlabels.com. Thanks for following. specialistsubjectrecords.co.uk. They have a Bandcamp as well, which is specialistsubject.bandcamp.com. Thanks for listening.